This gearbox does jump out of fifth gear. Those of you that watch my other channel know that my wiper motor stopped working on this car. Yeah, it definitely looks like it's covered in oil. It's actually loose in the rocker cover. But unfortunately, it cross-threaded, which I cured with my trusty hammer. Now my feeler gauges basically fell out of the casing they were in. And lower that down. She can stay like that for now. You're gonna love this epic fail that I'm about to reveal. Hello and welcome to this video. I'm Marcus Hayes and today you join me out and about in my favourite car, Esther, the ST170 Mk1 Escort. Now the plan for this video was to crack on with a couple of jobs on this car at my garage at home. Unfortunately, I don't have as many tools at my garage at home as I do at my other garage. So today I'm going to be cracking on with those couple of jobs at my other garage. Now one thing I have done since the last video is given this thing a bit of a DIY alignment using my toe plates and my camber gauge. It's not super accurate, but this thing hasn't had an alignment since I fitted the gas suspension, which was ages ago. I obviously went over to Northern Ireland recently and we lifted the suspension up so that we could cope with the roads over there, and then I've lowered it back down. So yeah, the alignment's all over the place, so I decided to give it a DIY alignment. The way I did it, because I'm obviously doing it on a ground that's not perfectly even, is with the camber. I measured the rear ones and then made sure that the front camber was 2 degrees more than what the rears were showing. So I'm getting roughly 2 degrees of camber on the front wheels, and then I just set the tracking so that it's slightly towing out, which is how I prefer them. It is pulling to the left slightly, so I may tweak one of the track rod ends to try and solve that. But yeah, the alignment she's got now will definitely be better than she had before. There was way more camber on the passenger side front wheel than there was on the driver's side, and both sides were well over 2 degrees. So yeah, it's definitely better than it was. Another thing I've done is I've made a little adjustment to the bump stop on the clutch pedal of this car, just to give myself a little bit more throw on the clutch. Every now and again it crunches. I think it's more to do with me, you know, changing gear a bit too quick or not pushing my foot all the way down. But yeah, I've just given it a couple of millimeters more travel, which should prevent that moving forward. Although this gearbox does jump out of fifth gear every now and again, so I think at some point I need to throw my other RX-8 6-speed in, because yeah, I think that one's actually in better condition than this one. Now, a couple of things to mention from previous videos. You'll remember that me and my beautiful girlfriend gave this thing a compression test and the figures were very, very low. And loads of you guys have been in touch with advice about that. Massive, massive thanks to everyone who does get in touch. Really, really appreciate your opinions. And yeah, it is really low. Every cylinder was below 100 PSI. I personally have always found the ST170s that I've had have read a little bit lower than the Zetec's I've had. Now that might just be that the ST170s I've had have been more worn, but I'm sure someone got in touch with me before and said the ST170s, when you do a compression test, they do read lower. I don't know if it's something to do with the VVT, you know, if it's not being engaged properly, you know, because, you know, you're only turning the engine over on the starter motor. I don't know. But, you know, maybe the bottom end of this engine is worn. There seems to be potentially a lot of crankcase pressure because I'm getting a little bit of oil out of the breather on the catch can. So yeah, maybe the bottom end is a bit worn, but the engine is really strong and it does make good power. So hopefully it's not anything that I necessarily have to deal with right now. Now, Kat was obviously in here turning the engine over and she's adamant that she did have her foot all the way down on the accelerator, but I did disconnect the ECU rather than just disconnecting the coil pack. So that would mean that the injectors wouldn't have been putting fuel into the cylinders. So if any of you guys can tell me, would that mean that the readings would be lower on the compression test if we're only throwing air into the cylinders and not fuel and air? Now, those of you that watch my other channel, the On Track channel, where I basically follow my life with my self-improvement and me, you know, improving my mental and physical health, will know that my wiper motor stopped working on this car, which is really annoying. The fuses all seem fine, so I don't know whether it's the switch or the motor itself. So that's something I'm gonna have to sort out at some point soon. And if you watch that channel, you'll also know that I sustained a bit of an injury at boxing. I've got a really bad pain in my chest and my arm, yeah, which is really going to hinder, you know, what I can get done. Yeah, life's painful at the moment, but you know, it is what it is. I don't have loads of time at the garage today anyway, because I want to get back in time to go to the gym with my beautiful girlfriend Kat. Yes, I am still going to the gym, even though I've got an injury. I can do something. I might not be able to do, you know, as much, but I'll be able to do something. So yeah, I'm going to get myself to the garage, and yeah, then I'll crack on with the couple of jobs that I've got planned for this thing. Alright, so the first thing I was going to crack on with today was to replace Esther's rocker cover gasket, because when I had the running issues before and I changed the plugs, I noticed that number 4 spark plug had a load of oil on it. But then when we came round to do the compression test a few days later, I could see that there was traces of oil on this bit of the cylinder head in here, which I couldn't see in the daytime when I was having the running issues. But yeah, with the torchlight I could see there was oil glistening here. But if I shine the torch in there, I can see that there's actually not really much of a puddle around the spark plug, and I've literally just driven the car all the way from home. So either that rocker cover gasket isn't leaking very much at all, or maybe the oil that I saw on the spark plug wasn't coming from that gasket. But yeah, I think I'll whip the spark plug out and just see if it is coated in oil like it was before. Yeah, it definitely looks like it's covered in oil. So I don't know if maybe any oil that is coming from that rocker cover gasket is able to get past the spark plug, you know, if the spark plug thread isn't, you know, perfectly oil tight, or is the oil coming from somewhere else, like coming past the rings in that cylinder. As always, do let me know what you reckon in the comments. I'm pretty sure that the cylinder head will be fine because it is a freshly built ported cylinder head from A.L. Developments. But before, when I've had the issue of the rocker cover letting the oil in, on Maud that was, there was literally a puddle around the spark plug. Unless, of course, as I say, the oil is able to escape past the spark plug and get onto the threads of the spark plug itself. So I don't think I'm actually going to bother changing the rocker cover gasket. I may put some sealer on the gasket at the back here, which is something that I have actually been advised to do by people in the past. But I am going to whip the rocker cover off to solve this issue. This fitting is actually loose in the rocker cover. I mean, I always run these hand tight anyway, just so that they're easy to remove if I ever have to, as you can see. But yeah, this bit is actually loose in there. And while the rocker cover's off, it will give me the opportunity to do something that I should have done when this new cylinder head was fitted. I refitted Esther's 4th spark plug and then pulled all the other HT leads off of their spark plugs, disconnected the VVT solenoid and moved the engine block breather pipe out of the way. Next, I disconnected the passenger side of the strut brace and lifted that out of the way, and then I removed the plastic cam belt cover from the front of the engine. With the rocker cover bolts loosened, I could pull Esther's rocker cover off of her engine, and I decided to use Maud's bonnet as a workbench. The bolts for the baffle plate are a weird size, so I have to use mole grips to remove them because I don't have the correct side socket. Once I'd removed the fitting, I decided to put some Loctite on the threads and then fix it back to the rocker cover with its nut. But unfortunately, it cross-threaded. I didn't have another fitting the same in my garage, but I had one with a slightly bigger thread on the back of it. But then I couldn't find a nut that would screw onto it, but I did find one that was close. So I used that nut to basically tap a new thread onto the fitting. And then once I'd enlarged the hole in the rocker cover a bit and cleaned out all the debris with brake cleaner, I was able to attach the new fitting to it. All that was left to do was to clean up and refit the baffle plate, and I used some Loctite on the bolts as a precaution. But once that was reinstalled, I noticed that the nut on the back of the new breather fitting meant that the baffle plate wasn't actually seated correctly, which I cured with my trusty hammer. Alright, so before I put the rocker cover back on Esther's engine, I want to have a look at something that I should have had a look at ages ago. Her valve clearances. So, you've got the camshafts here, and below the lobes on them, you've got the buckets, and they ultimately push down when the cam rotates, when the lobe of the cam rotates, and they are what opens the valves in the cylinder head. Now, if the clearances between the cam and the buckets is too big, then it means that when the lobe rotates round and pushes down on the valve is not going to open as much as it otherwise would, and then you won't get the optimal amount of fuel and air into the engine, I'm guessing. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. And if that gap's too tight, then it means that the valve might not fully close when the lobe comes off of the bucket, which I think can cause your valves to get burnt out and stuff. And ultimately it's going to mean that the cylinder isn't sealed when the valves are supposed to be closed. So quite a while ago now, Andrew Lindley from A.L. Developments told me that the clearances should be 10 thou on the exhaust and 8 thou on the inlet, and a thou is 1/1000th of an inch. So we're going to use feeler gauges to measure that accurate gap. Now my feeler gauges basically fell out of the casing they were in, but I have dug out the ones that I need. We've got a 2 thou and a 6 thou here, so together they make 8 thou, and then I've got a 10 thou one over here. If that's shown on the camera, you can see it says 010, so 10 thou, which is equal to 0.25 millimeters apparently. Now I haven't done loads of research on how to do this, so again, if I'm doing it wrong, let me know in the comments. But essentially we need to turn the engine to the right position to measure the gap between the cam and the bucket when the lobe isn't pushing down on the bucket. Now I think if the cam timing on this engine was stock, then we'd be able to take the first measurements by putting the engine at TDC. But because I've got an adjustable vernier on the exhaust cam, and this is, you know, not set standard, I don't know how that's going to affect what I'm doing. But from the videos I've been watching, you basically want the cam lobe, obviously it's got to be off of the bucket, and people say that it shouldn't be facing directly upwards. And some of the videos I was watching, they basically measure it when the cam lobe is, you know, horizontal. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to try and get each cam lobe to be, you know, as perfectly horizontal as I can get it, and then I'll measure the gaps. So the gearbox is in neutral, and I'm going to use my 18mm socket to turn the crank. It looks like this one here is pretty much vertical already. So I'm going to put the feeler gauge in between there and see what we get. So with it being an exhaust, it should be 10 thou. That's, I'd say loose. So I've just found a 005. Let's see if I put that with the 10. That's pretty tight. I mean, it goes in there, but it's pretty tight. Let's just put these together. So we've got 18 thou now. They don't go in there. So yeah, it's looking like the gaps on the exhaust cam are way too big, which will probably be causing Esther to be quite a bit down on power. I measured a couple more on the exhaust side, and it was clear that if I was doing the measuring correctly, the gaps were between 5 and 7 thou too wide, which is a lot. I think what I'm going to do another day soon is I'm going to swap out this exhaust cam for one of the spare ones that I've got in the garage.
I could probably measure the lobes with the caliper measurers and see if, you know, before I even go ahead to swap the cams, see if my other spare cam is less worn than this one. And that might be a sort of quick way of getting the clearances better without changing the buckets, which are quite expensive. So I'm going to move on to the inlet now.
On the inlet side, it appeared that the story was the same. All the gaps that I checked were between 5 and 7 thou too wide.
Alright, so it appears that Esther's valve clearances are way too wide, which is a good thing because it means that there might be some more power to extract from this setup. I don't think I'm actually going to fully put this thing back together because I wasn't going to drive her home today anyway. And yeah, I don't have loads more time round here today, and there is one other job I want to do on Esther before I go. So, we'll just plonk that on there and lower that down. She can stay like that for now. Alright, so next on the agenda, I want to fit the adjuster for my bias pedal box. Massive thanks again to my good friend Lee Booth, who gave me the adjuster cable. Saves me buying one. Now, you're going to love this epic fail that I'm about to reveal, because I've got a confession to make. I did actually hook up the adjuster to the pedal box yesterday when I was at my garage at home. So here is the knob for the adjuster for the bias pedal box. This has actually got a little grub screw on it, so you can literally undo that, pull the cable out, cut it to length, and then put it back in. And as you can see, I've got the cable hooked up to my bias pedal box. I've got a little adapter there that goes from the cable to the adjuster on the pedal box, and basically this cable's too long, and yesterday I hooked it up and I had it, you know, snaking around, and I just had this, you know, just hanging out over here, because basically I decided I'm going to put it in the switch panel. I was going to put it over here, but because this has got like a square plate and this isn't exactly flat, I think it will look a bit ropey. So yeah, I'm going to put it in the switch panel over here. But yesterday I was messing about with it, and you know, it works good. You know, you can literally set it all the way to rear and you put your brakes on and it literally just locks the rear up. And then, you know, the adjustment where it sort of needs to be is admittedly nearly all the way to front. Anyway, what I discovered today, if I poke my camera behind the dash, you can see there that the cable for the bias adjustment is actually jammed in amongst the wiper motor. So this is the cable here coming from the pedal box, snakes up there, and you can see it coming out of here. And yeah, I can't get it out. It's literally jammed in there. And seeing as the wipers are, you know, at the halfway point, yeah, it looks like the cable's literally trapped between the mechanism. So I need to try and get that out, hopefully without completely removing the wiper motor. Give me a sec. All right, so that's sorted. You can see here where it was trapped. Hopefully I haven't ruined the inner cable, because I think it's got to be a bit longer than that. So basically, I need to figure out where this is going to route so that it doesn't interfere with the wiper motor mechanism, and then work out where I need to cut it, and then just mount this into the switch panel. And yeah, this shouldn't be too much hassle to fit. Shouldn't have said that.
I decided to route the adjuster cable behind the pedal box. Once I'd figured out the length, I was actually able to cut it with these cutters. Next, I trimmed back the outer sleeve so that I'd be able to slide it into the adjuster knob when the time came. Once I decided where I was going to put the adjuster knob on Esther's carbon switch panel, I marked and drilled the hole for the centre bit to pass through. I then drilled pilot holes for 2 of the 4 mounting screws before screwing screws into them to make them a nice tight fit around the screws. With the cable passed through the carbon switch panel, I was able to attach the adjuster knob to it by tightening the grub screw, and then it was just a case of screwing the adjuster knob to the carbon switch panel for the final time, including creating the holes for the other 2 screws. With the adjuster fitted, it was time to test it. And here you can see the mechanism on the side of the pedal box working.
Alright, so I've just put a little cable tie up there, just tying this cable to the brake line, and yeah, that's going to keep that away from the throttle cable, and everything still works, as you can see. If if you sort of click it one way and then click it the other way, it takes a couple of clicks for it to start moving. I've stopped there, so it'll take 1, 2, 3 clicks, you know, to get it going. But yeah, other than that, it's absolutely fine. And my very empty switch panel looks slightly less empty now. Oh, one thing I haven't checked though, does the wiper motor now work? Oh, it went down. Yes! Happy days. Bonus fix. I thought I was gonna have to dive in there and remove the wiper motor and fit another one. Although, I do have some plans to do some jobs that involves getting behind the dash. But yeah, that can wait for another day.
All right, so it looks like I've left the garage way too late. I left at 4:30 thinking there was no way I was gonna get stuck in rush hour traffic, and lo and behold, we're in rush hour traffic. Been traveling for half an hour, and I've probably traveled the distance that I could normally get in 5 minutes or less. But there you go. One thing I forgot to mention about the bias pedal adjuster is that the label on it, the direction that it says is for front, is actually for rear on my setup, and vice versa. One of the videos I was looking at on YouTube about, you know, the bias adjustment was a video about Willwood bias pedal boxes, and even they said that they work opposite way to most other pedal boxes. So yeah, I'll have to either remove that label, I'll have to remove that label and then maybe have another one made up or something, or I could put a label on the switch panel instead. But yeah, it basically works in the opposite way to what the label says on the knob. But that's fine. Obviously a real shame about the valve clearances, but I'm actually happy about it because once I solve that, then I should have a few more horses, which would be good. And who knows, maybe she will break the 200 brake mark, which we kind of expected her to do when we fitted the ported cylinder head, but it wasn't to be.
Hello, into a new day. Now I was planning to continue this video round at the garage here at home, cracking on with a couple of bits on Maud, including some bits that you guys suggested about her dodgy suspension. But I'm trying to, at the moment, make the videos a bit more frequent and try not to make them too long for you guys to watch, but also too long for me to edit. So I'm going to be cracking on with that next time I'm messing around with the cars. And in that video, I'm also planning to get over to Esther's garage to see if we can improve her valve clearances and potentially squeeze a few more horsepower out of her engine. If any of you guys could confirm whether I was or wasn't checking those valve clearances on Esther correctly in this video, that would be great. And of course, got to send a massive thanks out to Andrew Lindley for giving me the information with regards to what those clearances should be. And of course, massive thanks for doing the ported cylinder head job on Esther's engine. I will of course leave their links in the description for any of you guys out there that are looking to extract more power from your engines. So that's it for this video. Massive thanks to everyone who's got this far. If you did think it was any good, please do give it a thumbs up and a share. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Click subscribe if you're new. Feel free to follow me on Facebook, TikTok and Instagram. Check out my website for merch and parts. Massive thanks to my patrons for your ongoing support. I'll leave all the links to everything in the description as usual, along with my email address for anyone who wants to contact me. But other than that, until next time, thanks for watching.